That was wonderful. Swami, excuse me, Swami almost always wanted to start with music, partly because it opens the heart. The talks that people give and words, they come first to the intellect, and then they have to be interpreted. And of course, if they're effective, they help awaken the heart's energy. But music goes straight to the heart, and it awakens the heart's energy immediately. And then if the mind gets engaged at all, it is engaged in a secondary level. So now you get the intellect fed, but only a little bit. It's not the time or the occasion for a long discourse. But we thought we would touch on the theme, which is the theme of Dussehra, of the battle of light and dark, and how that can be fought and won in the world today. Of course, the symbolism of today is the return of light. After a long battle against the dark, the victorious return of the light into the world, into the realm, Rama's realm, and so the welcoming of that light coming back. And it's also a day obviously dedicated to Divine Mother, both of these. And so that battle of light against dark, the Ramayana took place a long, long time ago, the historical facts of that. And so it was at that time, battle of light and dark, time of Krishna and the Mahabharata, battle of light and dark, time of today, battle of light and dark. The world is always there in a battle of light against dark. And so we can look at it in an outward way, and that's important to do because there is a real outward battle of light against dark, and it goes on constantly. We had a very dear friend in Delhi, and he was the son of a very expansive and very high-minded, very saintly woman. This was the woman that took Swami Kriyananda in 1958 when he 1958 when he came to India, and he lived with them, and she was the one that introduced him. For those of you who've read Swami's life, introduced him to Indira Gandhi, and it was a possibility of Ananda's work expanding. That didn't happen at that time, but this woman, Rani Ban was her name. Her house was a sanctuary for all the great saints of the time. Ananda Ma often came there. Sri Yukteswar came there. Many of the great saints, they would come and be there. Well, after she passed on, we had a long and continued friendship with her son, Indu Ban. And he would have dreams of her and sometimes visions of her. So there was a connection still with her, even though she was on the astral world. And one night he had a dream of her, and she came, or it was a vision, I'm not sure which, but it was a very real experience in any case. If it was a dream, it was a superconscious dream. At any rate, she came and she said, on behalf of all of us, I asked Babaji, there's so much darkness in the world. Why don't you do something? Take away that darkness. And Babaji said this, which is very important for us in our lives. He said, in this world of duality, there is always a balance between light and dark. It is not my job, Babaji speaking, to suppress the darkness. It is my job to enhance the light. And so we, by extension, all being guided by Babaji and this line of gurus, it's our job not to try to suppress the darkness, because that will bring us into negativity, fighting against whatever darkness there is. That, of course, has to happen. But our job is to enhance the light, to bring in the light. And while that's true on the level of the world and politics and business, all of that, there are always a balance. You know it as well as I do. A balance between dharma and adharma going on. A balance between honesty and dishonesty, of kindness and caring, and selfishness and greed. So there's always this battle going on in the world. If we fight against the darkness, we will get drawn into the darkness. But if we become agents of the light, we will be drawn into the light. And so our lives will be uplifted, and by extension, the lives of everyone around us. So while this battle of light against dark is always going on in the world, we have to understand that a great scripture like the Ramayana or the Mahabharata is written on multiple levels. And Master did not interpret or explain the Ramayana, but it applies. He did explain in great depth the Mahabharata and and of course the Gita, which is a part of the Mahabharata. And what he explained in that, and for many people this is a revolution of understanding. Davy and I gave some classes on this in Delhi, and weekend classes on Master's interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita. And people who came and they heard this for the first time, for some of them it was life-changing. But what they heard is this, that all of those characters in the Mahabharata, both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they represent historical figures, yes. The Battle of Kurukshetra did take place historically, yes. All of those outward things happened, but that wasn't what was really being written about in that great scripture. What was being written about is the inner battle. That all of the Kauravas represent our negative qualities, the darkness that resides within us. So Duryodhana represents king material greed, as is what Master called him. Any material greed that you have makes you a disciple of Duryodhana. Because the way Master put it so charmingly, he said that every thought that we have, every desire that we have, all of those are mental citizens in our mind. And every time we do an action, we elect that citizen to a higher, we elevate him to have more power. So if we do activities that imply or involve material greed on our part, we're electing Duryodhana to rule the kingdom of our mind. And so on, the other 99 brothers of the Kauravas represent all of those materialistic qualities, jealousy and anger and deceit and all of those qualities. On the other hand, the Pandavas represent the chakras. Each of the Pandavas represents one of the 5 chakras and the associated spiritual qualities that go with those. I won't go in, as I say, tonight is not the night for a long discourse, but I want to say that these great scriptures, well, they carry on, an engrossing story, and it's interesting to read and fun to read. We were told by a friend here in Pune that they were watching the great epic, the Mahabharata, as a child on television. The show that was there. And they were all excited because finally the time had come. The Mahabharata had come to the point where it was the night before the war, and they had built shields and they had their swords and they were all ready for the big battle. And then Krishna and Arjuna start this discourse. They couldn't believe it. Anyway, they went out in the street and carried on their Mahabharata battle. But of course, that discourse is the essence of, for an adult devotee, the essence of the understanding that these great scriptures aren't talking about something that was distant in time or far away in place or involved characters that we can look at and admire but not relate to. You know, who's going to really relate to Hanuman as a monkey god and all of his powers? Who, you know, we can enjoy the story, but how do we relate to that? But if we understand that Rama and Sita and Hanuman and the great characters in the Ramayana are talking about characters within us, what makes somebody like a Hanuman as powerful as he is? He represents the heart quality that has been given to and aligned with the divine will. And when we align our heart quality with the divine will, we can grow huge. We can accomplish great things. And if we don't align that, then our hearts shrink and we become some sort of a disciple of Ravana or of the negative forces. So these great scriptures, as I say, are not talking about something outside of ourselves. They're talking about the battle of light and dark that goes on within our own hearts. Now, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, there's a concurrence today. Obviously, it's Gandhi's birthday. And the great teachings and there's a perfect illustration of the power of holding firm to Dharma, holding firm to truth, holding firm to Satyagraha, holding firm to those spiritual qualities and how that has the effect of being able to change society. Gandhi's revolution in India will have a far greater lasting effect than many other French Revolution, even the American Revolution, even though great souls were involved. Nonetheless, the power of the example of victory through spiritual means instead of victory through military means is an example that will uplift consciousness and change consciousness. And so the concurrence of today, the return of the light, victorious light, the return of the power of one man leading a nation to hold firm to the holding firm to the value of Dharma and truth, that example for the world. And then finally, it's also the celebration of Durga and Divine Mother. If any quality is needed in the world today, it is the return of the love and feminine quality of support and caring and unconditional love that Durga represents, with power, of course. But that return of the Divine Mother into the world is a badly, desperately needed ingredient that we need now to balance society. Light can come in many forms, but the light of love is the light that will really change hearts and really uplift society. And the more that we can align ourselves with the power of these great, great uplifted masters that come and show us outwardly symbols, but inward the truth of how we should live our lives and how living our lives dedicated to Divine Mother, dedicated to aligning our will with the will of God, and doing that with the power of a warrior. This is not the time for passivity. We need to be warriors of the light, but warriors of the light, not not with negativity, not with any kind of negative or downward pulling energy. We need to be warriors of the light, using the tools of calmness and peace and harmony and love and cooperation, and giving those examples to the world so that society can change by the only means that can ever be a permanent change, which is the upliftment of consciousness. And so as we uplift our consciousness, and then as we do whatever we can, as this center is dedicated to doing, to helping others, to supporting others in the process of them uplifting their consciousness, that is the way that we fight the battle of light against dark. And that is the way that we too will lead a victorious life that allows us to return, when we come to our home in God, to return bearing the candle that we have lit according to their power. So happy day.
Thank you, Jyotish. That was very inspiring. Well, and also I want to thank Bharat and the choir. It was so beautiful listening to you all. But for me, equally beautiful was watching all of you who were repeating the words along with the song. I thought, oh, they all know the song. How beautiful. So Swami's music has been a carrier wave across the world. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit more about living in the presence of Divine Mother. You know, Yogananda ji came to the West in 1920. He was sent by Babaji and our great line of gurus, and he came at a time at the beginning of Dwapara Yuga, the beginning of a new age of energy, to show the world, starting in the West, but then spreading all over the world, a new way of finding God and seeing God in daily life. And one of the things he brought was something unknown in the West, really, was the worship of God as Divine Mother. And this, when we read his autobiography of a yogi, we know the story that he and his mother were extremely close. She was a great soul. She would have to be the mother of an avatar. And they were very, very close, perhaps more than any other members of the family. And yet she died when he was a young boy. And for many, many years, he wept for her absence. He missed the Divine Mother. And again, it's important to look at the symbolism even of that episode in his life, because in our own life, how many of us have lost friends or family or loved ones that seemed an irreparable loss? And yet, if we try to see beyond the form, as Master did, but to see God, it was God coming to me as that friend. It was God coming to me as my mother or my child or whatever loss we may have. And finally, one day, Master, as a young boy, was praying, and the tears were flowing down his cheeks. And then Divine Mother appeared to him, and he saw his human mother, but then beyond that, he saw the Divine Mother, and she said to him, "Always have I loved thee, ever have I loved thee. I have come to you in many forms, but see beyond the form." And that's what Master came to show us, that every religion in the world has its forms and its ways they identify that God is this or God is that. But Master said, yes, there are these qualities, but they are all aspects of a consciousness which has come to earth with unconditional love and forgiveness and the desire for us to find peace and happiness in this world. And so when we worship Divine Mother, as Master taught us, he said, there's even a recording of his voice where he said, "I worship the Divine Mother because the mother is closer than the father." And it's true. We may have the best father in the world, but there's a bond between mother and child that is a unique gift to each soul. And if you have, I was fortunate to have a very beautiful mother, and she taught me so much from childhood. When I would come home, maybe some of the children at school would have teased me or made me cry, whatever had happened. And instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to call that girl's mother and, I'll get angry," she would sit me down and she would say, "Let's try to understand that person. Why would they act that way?" And it's been something I've done my whole life. Whenever something happens, that behavior on someone's part, instead of getting angry or reacting, I try to understand that person. That's what Divine Mother does. She sees past our mistakes, she sees past our behavior, and she understands us and accepts us. And so there is that loving, unconditional presence of the Divine Mother. But drawing from the theme that Jyotish created of the battle of light and darkness, in India, we also have the powerful aspects of Divine Mother. We have Kali, and we have Durga riding on the lion, and lion or tiger? Lion, okay, got it right. But so these aspects of the Divine Mother that are all powerful, all conquering, because the world needs that. If we think of, Divine Mother as soft and sweet, that she is, but don't be deceived. There is a power behind that love. There is a power that will banish all darkness. And there was a wonderful quote I read, very well known, from the great Gandhi, whose birthday today, and during one of his long fasts to try to rid India of the British rule, he was, he'd been fasting for a long time, barely conscious, and he called one of his followers over and he said, "There have always been tyrants and dictators in the world, but they seemed indomitable, but in the end, they were defeated. Remember that truth always wins out in the end. Remember this always." And in the world we live in today, it's the power of truth, of light, of the love that Divine Mother has for all human beings, all of them. There was a beautiful story from a book called The Hiding Place. And this is a story, true story, that took place during World War II. It took place in Holland. And there was a family of Christians, Dutch Christians, who were hiding the Jews from the Nazis and helping them to escape. And finally, they were betrayed by someone, and they themselves were put in a concentration camp, an elderly father and two sisters. One of the sisters wrote the book. Corrie ten Boom was her name, if you ever want to read the book. It's very inspiring. And so the father died quickly. He was elderly and couldn't stand the deprivation of the concentration camp. But these two sisters were in a cell together. And the one sister, her name was Betsy, she was a very, very saintly person. And they went through extreme hardships. And the guards were so cruel. And yet, and then Betsy, her sister, died too. Corrie survived. But she had deep faith in God, and that's what got her through. And then after the war was over, she would travel around the world trying to inspire people in goodness, in the love of God, that God always is present, even in the darkest of circumstances. And then one day, she was giving a talk, and a man came up afterwards, and he looked at her, and he said, "Will you forgive me?" And first she didn't recognize him, and then she saw he was the guard in their prison, and he had been complicit in the death of her sister. And she stood there, and she thought, Lord, how can I forgive this man? I know what he did. And she was about to back off. And then she felt God's presence. And she took his hands and she said, God forgives you. And that's the power of the Divine Mother, that unconditional forgiveness. And she said in that moment, she was transformed because God's unconditional love flowed through her. And so to be channels for the light, to be channels for the unconditional love of Divine Mother, this is what lies before us. And the world, Master predicted great instability in the years ahead. He said there would be, quote, there would be weeping in every home, is what Master said. But Jyotish and I have the opportunity to share with people in many places in this world. And it gives me great hope for the future of this planet, for the future of humanity, to see people with spiritual dedication, commitment, resolve, saying no matter what happens, no matter what people do, I will have that unconditional love of Divine Mother. No one can beat that out of me. No one can take that away from me. But to find that, we need to go within and find that Divine Mother within ourselves through meditation, through devotion, through chanting, through service, all of these things, through discipleship to the Guru. And so, my friends, we have a wonderful opportunity before us to make a choice. Will I let the world break me of my faith in higher values, in the triumph of light, or will I stand up strong and say nothing can ever make me doubt the victory of light over darkness? And the more all of us can do that together, the more it has an impact and a change in the world. And I'll close with this little story. It's a true story that happened to us. We were leading a pilgrimage to the Holy Land at one point, and they took us, the tour guide took us out into the desert. This was 1998, so some time ago. And at this place in the desert, it was just a ruin. It had been the site of 7 succeeding civilizations, rise and fall, rise and fall. And according to biblical prophecies, it would be the place where the last great conflagration of the world would start. And there we stood. And in the middle of, there was nothing around us. And there were 30 of us. And we held hands and we chanted Om for world peace, for world harmony. And we just kept chanting. And then this image came in my mind very, very powerfully of these 2 angels, an angel of light and an angel of darkness. And they were, like arm wrestling, trying to push the other one over. And they were kind of equally strong. And so no one could win. But then when we chanted Om, I could see how the angel of light was empowered by the power of our love of the light, of our desire for world peace. And remember, there are great guardians of the planet, but we are a part of that too. They are not disconnected from us. By our own faith and strength, we strengthen the great beings that guard this planet. And if Master came to the West, no one wanted to hear him, what would have happened to his message? What would have happened? None of us would be in this room. Our lives would be completely different. But people came, and they wanted what he had, Master, and they drew his teachings, and they created communities, and they created centers, and they shared the teachings, and they taught Kriya Yoga. And because of that, the power of light has grown and remains present in this world today. So it's a joy to be in this movement of light that Master has brought us. And it's a joy to see your dedication and your devotion. And we thank you for sharing with us this with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the beautiful sharing and bringing Divine Mother, Mahatma Gandhi, both of them Master has frequently shared in Autobiography of a Yogi, and the last point that Devi ji mentioned, that we all are together in this fight, light over darkness. So it feels like more of a strength that we are as a community are fighting this battle against the darkness over light. So thank you very much for the sharing. Now I will continue the introduction part. Okay, so Nayaswamis Jyotish Ji is an artist, and today we are going to launch his book, which was compiled by Ananda Sangha Gurgaon team, with all the pictures of his art in one compilation of a book. And this, you can call that book, I can just bring it now. So this is a coffee table book, and as you can see, the title of this book is Meditation Born Art. So title itself says that Nayaswamis Jyotish Ji received inspiration to draw and paint some of the paintings that you will find in this book. And I would say I have few, like in our house we have few of his paintings, and whenever I look at them, he has used a lot of bright colors, and he has written all the stories behind the paintings. As you get this book, you will read a lot about them. But he has used a lot of bright colors. And you know what? It is, I have read somewhere in our teachings that astral colors are all bright. And that's why when you look at his paintings, it just shifts you, it just uplifts you so much so that you get more deeper into it. Then another aspect of his painting that I see, that he has put a lot of nature in his paintings, mountains, trees, rivers. All those are really the miracles of God's creativity, no? So that also you will find in his painting and his art. Another thing that I would like to highlight, and that is the most favorite, is he has included Master and Swamiji in his paintings also. So wherever that inspiration that he is drawing, he is also including them while he is painting and drawing, so that they are also part of that creation, which actually has been derived through the teachings and through the guidance that he has received. So I would highly recommend that book to all of you to have a look. But before that, let us just launch this book. So I would like to invite Jyotishji, please open the book and show to all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. This was presented to us last year in a lesser form by the team in Gurgaon, and I must say it came as a complete surprise that they had compiled such a thing. And I have to say it's very hard to keep a secret in the world of Ananda, but somehow they managed to do that. And then other people wanted it, so as more people wanted it, we thought, well, we should improve it. So we improved it by having different sections dedicated to, for instance, the guru-disciple relationship, paintings of waves of the sea, and so on. And then as we heard, I wrote many descriptions so that you could understand the symbolism in the painting or the story behind it or so on. But as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'll stop talking and let you see a few of these. Anyway, we won't go on, but there are about 170 paintings in here, and there are descriptions and then introduction to each of the different sections. So it gave me great joy to paint these and to try to stay in attunement with the guidance of these great masters while I took thoughts or inspiration and then translated that into visual form. And as Anandita said, many of them have bright colors, which does indeed represent a bridge between the physical and the astral world. So we've signed a few of these, and for those of you who would like to have a copy to have in your own home, then there are some signed ones, and we can sign more. But do enjoy.